Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Since 2013, Bombas has donated over 100 million socks, underwear, and T-shirts to those facing homelessness. If we counted those on air, this ad would last over 1,157 days. But if we counted the time it takes to make a donation possible, it would take just a few clicks. Because every time you make a purchase, Bombas donates an item to someone who needs it.
Go to bombas.com/ACAST and use code ACAST for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/ACAST, code ACAST.
I'm Sandra, and I'm just the professional your small business was looking for. But you didn't hire me because you didn't use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has professionals you can't find anywhere else, including those who aren't actively looking for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, like me.
In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you'll miss out on great candidates like Sandra. Start hiring professionals like a professional. Post your free job on linkedin.com/spoken today.
Hello, and welcome to Voices from the Battlefield, part of Waterloo Remembered. The next extract is read by Napoleonic historian Charles Esdale, and consists of the recollection of a soldier of the 1st French Grenadiers.
This reading is from Epoliques de Moduis, Les derniers jours de la Grande Armée, ou souvenirs, correspondances et documents inédits de Napoléon en 1814 et 1815. It was published in Paris in 1848, Hippolyte de Moduis being a sergeant in the 1st Battalion of the Grenadiers of the Old Guard. The day had hardly dawned when an order of the Emperor was transmitted to every unit of the Guard, or rather a fragment thereof, for we had by no means all arrived, directing us to prepare our parade uniforms for the grand entry into Brussels that he was planning for that same evening. How cruel an illusion did that prove to be! Nevertheless, we set ourselves to implementing our orders, only to find that our arms and equipment had to take priority. Thus we found that our muskets could not be fired, the only way to put this right being to take them apart completely and clean them thoroughly. At the same time, the rain had been so heavy that, carefully wrapped up in our cartridge boxes, so the packets were, the cartridges had become equally unusable. As for our uniforms, when La Grenadière sounded to call us to arms around 9 o'clock, whilst we dressed ourselves as smartly as we could, it was still so wet as to force us to wear the same kit we had been dressed in the day before, namely our greatcoats, and to omit all adornment from our bearskins. In consequence, not a single one of us was wearing the summer parade uniforms in which imagination has led so many artists to picture us in their attempt to capture some episode or other of that last great drama of the Empire. We arrived on the field of battle at about 10 o'clock. Having got us there, General Friant formed us into closed column of divisions to the right and left of the Knoll of Rossomme, the same place indeed where Napoleon spent the first hours of the battle. My regiment was placed just on the left-hand side of the high road. Nothing could have been more imposing than the appearance which the battlefield presented from the elevated spot on which we found ourselves at that moment. Placed as we were, we dominated the whole of the plain in front of us and to our left. The terrain was rather broken up, with undulations running in different directions, but from the foot of the escarpment on which Rossomme was placed, it tended to rise steadily in the direction of the position occupied by the Anglo-Dutch position. We could see the whole of its right and centre, and even pick out the batteries stationed in its front line. But its left was beyond our view, as the ground on the right of the road rose up in a broad plateau that ran on without a break until it was a mere cannon shot from the enemy line. To our left and a little in our rear there rose a wooden tower that had been erected in connection with a geographical survey of the country, he means the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Some of our comrades who had been attracted to visit it by curiosity and beyond doubt a desire to get a better idea of the battlefield as a whole, told us that affixed to it was a placard written in large letters with this strange inscription: "This place will be the grave of the French." Although the tower was situated no more than a few hundred yards from our position, none of us ever got the chance to go and view this death sentence for ourselves. However, doubtless it was the product of English braggadocio, always assuming it was not the expression of the criminal views of some traitor. The slopes of the valley that separated the two armies were fairly gentle, with the exception of a spot a few yards beyond La Essante. Here they attained all the aspects of a rampart. Following the advance of the troops of Generals Daumont and Mouton, we left our position at Rossomme with a view to closing up on our first lines, still formed up in close column. We followed the line of the road and stayed within a few paces of its left-hand side. Very soon we were saluted by the artillery drawn up in serried ranks in the vicinity of Hougoumont. Several of the balls concerned falling within a few yards of us or in the midst of our ranks, one of them killed a cantiniere attached to the company next to mine, as well as the commander of our battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Gombe. The unfortunate cantiniere, the first casualty which our battalion suffered that day, had come from Elba with a grenadier with whom she had decided to share her fate. As she was marching directly behind him, she was struck, and her blood coated his bearskin and knapsack, while such was the impact that the little barrel of liquor which she had been carrying was burst apart, and that despite the fact that he was not touched by the ball. Given that we had just halted, we were able to help the old grenadier pay his last respects to a companion whose devotion merited an end that, if not less glorious, should have been much more gentle. We dug a grave for her beside the high road, and her lover stood beside it with his hands pressed to his heart, while several grenadiers took the girl by the arms and lowered her into her last resting place. A cross improvised from a couple of branches plucked from the nearby hedge was placed on the grave, and an inscription fastened to it with a pin, this running as follows: "Here lies Maria, cantiniere of the 1st Regiment of Grenadiers of the Old Guard, dead on the field of honour at 2:30 in the afternoon on 18th of June 1815. Passer-by, whoever you may be, render Maria a salute of honour." A little afterwards we crossed the road and took up a fresh position between La Belle Alliance and Pont-Noir, for Bulow's skirmishers were already advancing on the latter village. Drawn up in echelons of battalion squares, we formed 15 miniature fortresses ready to serve, should the need arise, as a refuge to the fortunes of France. As for the lover of Maria, he was not destined to survive her for very long, for one by those strange turns of fortune, just as Maria was struck down by one of the first balls that struck her ranks, so her grenadier, a man of 30 years' service, was carried off by one of the first balls that the Prussians fired at our squares. Caught by a shell burst, he died in the midst of the most appalling tortures. Had it not been for the disasters that followed, we would have reunited him with Maria. But as it was, he had to be left lying amidst all the other victims of that terrible day, and like the great majority of them, without doubt ended up being flung into some common grave.
That was historian Charles Esdale reading the recollections of a soldier of the 1st French Grenadiers, and you can find details of Charles's collected works, which are available to order online now. Stay tuned to the Napoleonicist, where more instalments of the Voices from the Battlefield series will be released throughout the day.
Even on a budget, quality is non-negotiable. That's why Quince is the place to score high-end essentials at 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Get your hands on buttery soft cashmere sweaters from just $60, Italian leather jackets, and so much more. And the best part about Quince, they exclusively partner with factories committed to safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing. Elevate your style without the elevated price tag with Quince. Go to quince.com/upgrade for free shipping and 365-day returns.